Hello everyone and welcome to Gentlemen of Action, your channel that covers finance, business, self-improvement, and crypto news that will always keep you in the action. My name is Armando Cuervo, and today I want to talk about a topic that's been affecting all of us, and it's always been in the news, or at least it's been in the news a whole lot more lately, besides, things dealing with the war. Because we all know that the war effort that's going on right now between the Ukraine and Russia is causing a lot of problems, and one of those is inflation. But between, you, me, and the rest of the internet, we know that the war is not exactly the only driver of this inflation. It also has to do a lot more with money printing, but we're going to be discussing that in a moment. So, in order to combat this inflation, I wanted to provide a solution that is something that should have been taught for the longest time in schools, but because I can't depend on the school system to actually teach you it, I'm going to try to see if I can use the power of the internet to teach you a little bit of what I know in terms of combating inflation. So let's look into some people who are not doing it correctly. First off, as per the Twitter and Bloomberg opinions, which, okay, I understand, a news media outlet that has an opinion piece, we all know that it's an opinion, but this is a main news or media outfit that's peddling that this are solutions. So let's continue. Inflation stings most if you earn less than $300,000. Here's how to deal. Number 1, take the bus. Number 2, don't buy in bulk. Number 3, try lentils instead of meat. And number 4, nobody said this would be fun. Okay, so you already know that I don't like this, but let's go to the article that they're linking to. As by Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg opinion, inflation stings most if you earn less than $300,000. Here's how to deal. Subtitle: more Americans than ever expect their finances to worsen as inflation hits a 40-year high. Do you really need that extra car? Yeah, maybe. I want an extra car. But let's continue. All right. It says here, if your income is more than $289,000 a year, the run-up in gas prices may be alarming, but it's unlikely that it will hammer your overall finances. I like how they start with saying that, hey, if you're rich, who cares? Which, well, obviously, if you're rich, who cares? And here we go. After all, Americans at that level spend no more than 1% of their take-home pay on gas and oil, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which I could have probably told you that. Okay, so let's just talk about the gist of this article, because we all know that the one who wrote this article is probably a professor of, let's say, economics, who probably doesn't deal in the real world, which actually here she is right now, Miss Teresa Geladucci, who is the Schwartz Professor of Economics at the New School for Social Research, which you already know that she's totally on the pulse about how real America works. So the gist of the article, which just covers some of the highlights, because I don't want to waste your time with this, because let's talk about real solutions. But okay, first here, she says, to deal with gas prices, it's worth reconsidering public transportation, if it's an option where you live. Fares are up about 8%, compared with 38% for gasoline. Now may even be the time to sell your car. It certainly isn't the time to buy a new or used one. Prices have stabilized a bit, but used car prices are still up 40% from a year ago, and new ones are up 12%. Okay, great. So sell your car, guys. You don't need your car. You should go and take the bus. Oh, by the way, when it comes to food, don't be afraid to explore. Prices for animal-based food products will certainly increase. The hell you say? Let me see. It says here, meat prices have increased about 14% from February 2021 and will go up even more. Though your palate may not be used to it, tasty meat substitutes include vegetables, where prices are up a little bit over 4%, and lentils and beans, which are only up about 9%. Plan to cut out the middle creature and consume plants directly. It's a more efficient, healthier, and cheaper way to get calories. Now, she also says stay away from buying in bulk, which I'm not going to give up my Costco membership, thank you. Just saying. So, okay, the rest of this is bullcrap. So let's not really talk about it. Guys, here's the problem. This lady and the media in general, and actually society in general, they're all talking about how to combat inflation by scaling back. They're all talking about how to deal with inflation by accepting less, which I wonder, why don't they ever talk about how to make more money or how to combat inflation by making the right financial moves. Now, granted, the problem with combating inflation by saving money is that you can only take away so much of your spending. You can only spend so little, when you should probably be focusing on how to increase the amount of money you make. Now, I know it's easier said than done. I have some multiple streams of income, but I don't have, let's say, 6 figures in any one of those, but I have multiple streams. And altogether, it does make for a substantial amount of money, which I'm very happy that I have such options. But even I am feeling the pinch everywhere because, of course, I don't make over $300,000. And I don't expect that all of you make over $300,000 either. So let's talk about how to eventually get there. But before we get there, let's talk about what's the real culprit to all this, which is that inflation is eating us alive, which, as provided by another article, which I think Bloomberg, by the way, if you notice, there's a paywall right here saying that I should go ahead and spend 50 cents a week to go and read this trash. I'm glad I don't. I just use Twitter. But now here's a website that explains it a little bit better, which is Finbold, which is Finance in Bold. It says right here, real value of $1 decreases by 86% in the last 50 years. So let's talk about this. It says right here that the value of the US or United States dollar has fallen considerably in recent years, raising questions over the dollar's long-term viability as a safe haven currency. Now, according to data as provided by Finbold, the US dollar has depreciated 6-fold over the last 50 years. In 1972, the worth of one American dollar, or $1, was $1, because they're using that as the basis for all of this. But by 2022, the value of a dollar dropped by an incredible 86% to 14 cents, which means that every dollar that you had in 1972, if you saved it and did nothing with it, let's say you put it under your mattress, it's worth the equivalent of 14 cents. All right? Well, it says right here, the dollar depreciation data is derived from statistics supplied by the United States of Labor and calculated by the researchers at officialdata.org. So you best know that if I'm going to be told all this crap from a article that says, hey, we're going to get all the data from here, I go to the actual website that provides it right there. So then I can go and check the notes. Because, as much as I like to just believe that they're telling me the truth, I can't do that. So it's right here. We're going to be exploring that in just a moment. But let's finish a little bit more of this article. So it says right here, the depreciation directly lowers the dollar's purchasing power. Thus, $1 in 1972 is worth $6.99 today. When $1 is equivalent to $6.99 over time, then the real value of a single US dollar diminishes with time. Yes, that's what inflation is. Actually, no, inflation is a little bit more, and they'll actually explain that in just a second. But again, it says here, in other words, a dollar will buy you fewer items at the grocery store than it previously would otherwise. Right. So, here's the truth of the matter. It says right here, how inflation affects the dollar. Because right now, at least where it stands right now, inflation year over year is 7.9%. But how does inflation affect the dollar? It says right here, since 1972, the rate of inflation in the United States has risen even as the economy recovered from the depths of severe crises, such as the 2008 recession and the effects of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the US dollar's value has fallen as a consequence of the government's continuous money printing, or quantitative easing for all of you who hear other words for it. With major central banks pumping $9 trillion into the economy amidst the pandemic. So they basically create a lot of money out of thin air, and that's what causes inflation. Because remember, inflation is an expansion of the money supply. When inflation is high, the dollar's buying power decreases. And in most circumstances, depreciation happens when the government resorts to printing more money to address the deficit. And that's the dirty little secret that they don't tell you. The reason why they print money is because they're using it to cover the debt. Imagine that they print so much money that they make the dollar virtually worthless. And when they tax people, they get more of these dollars in order to service the debt. This is basically a lot of financial ease to say we're totally screwed. But I'm going to tell you how to be a little less screwed. Now, I'm not telling you exactly what to do. I'm just telling you that saving your money is not going to work. But I like you to take something else into consideration, which rather than looking at where the dollar has depreciated over all these years from this inflation, we can look into what has increased over the years so then you can combat inflation just a little bit better. And speaking about being a little less screwed, let's talk about what we should be doing with our money in order to make sure that we can combat inflation. So the website that they used in order to get this data and make that article was from this one website here, which is officialdata.org. Seems to be an inflation calculator, which I really like these type of websites because you can get a lot of good information in order to really understand how much money is impacted by inflation. It can also be a good learning exercise for you to make some informed decisions. So it says right here that, at least based off of the article, and this is what they were using, that $1 in 1972 is worth $6.79 today, which is pretty close to what they were saying, which was $6.99. It's just that the amount of inflation fluctuates for these articles. So it's about 20 cents off, but it's still pretty close. So if you look throughout this website, after you put in the appropriate years, they basically show year over year the amount of inflation that there was, which for money nerds like me, I really like reading all this. But here's the kicker right here, which is buying power of $1 over time. You start with the basis of 1972 being the $1, and through those 50 years, that $1 has been reduced to buying power of 14 cents. So in order to combat this inflation, you can go with this nice professor right here of economics, because, you know, she's on the pulse, and you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy red beans instead of red meat. That's how I'm going to combat inflation. I'm also going to ride the bus and the train in order to make sure that I save a lot of money and that inflation doesn't kill me. Now, you could do that, or you can do what we should have been told a long time ago, which last time I checked, combating inflation by taking the bus and buying lentils is not the way to become rich. What we should have been doing all this time, and myself included, was we should have been investing our money into the stock market. Or in this case, you have a lot more options now where you can invest in cryptocurrencies, you can invest in precious metals, and with the internet and everything else, they're more accessible than ever. But which use the S&P 500 as an index, which, in case you're unaware, the S&P 500, it does come in the form of ETFs, or electronic traded funds, which means that you can put your money into the general stock market or the S&P 500, and you could be making money depending on where the market goes. So I'm here on Market Watch right here, which shows that the S&P 500 is currently at $4,461.18. This is over the span of a day. Now, it looks like it started at 44.79, and it went down to 44.61. So it went down about $1.94, it says right here. So basically, if you invested today, you would have lost about 0.04% on your money. But here's something important. If you expand it by 1 year, it shows here, and I'm trying to make this load, guys. Technical difficulties. Okay, here we go. So over 1 year, if you were to invest your money 1 year ago on 3/22/21, the S&P was at 39.40.59, and now it's currently at 44.61. So that's an increase of over $500. Now, we know that last year had a higher than normal inflation, or rather higher than normal gain, because money was basically printed and put into the market. So, of course, anybody investing in the last 1 to 3 years had amazing gains, because here we go. 3 years ago today, it shows here that the S&P was at 28.34, and it's now currently at 44. So that means you could have effectively got a good 60 to 80% on your money by just investing in the general stock market of the S&P 500. So this is how you really combat inflation, because year over year, you typically win. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because not every year you make the money. So let's actually change it to all time, because this is probably a better idea. So yes, if you were to invest in, let's say 2002, and then which was at $879, but then you got out in 2009, you would have lost about $96. So it doesn't always work where year over year, let's say after 7 years, you're ahead. I mean, this is how the market works. But guys, here's the important part. I did all time here on the S&P 500. And the first year date that they're giving here is 1/1/78. So let's go back here and just say $1 in 1978. Calculate. Okay, so it says right here that $1 in 1978 was worth $4.35. Okay, so that's what we're going to be using. So if you go here, and let's say that you put exactly the same amount, $1 for dollar. In 1/1/78, the S&P 500 was $89.88. So let's say $90. Now, if you were to keep this money, $1, dollar for dollar, $90 back in 1/1/1978, and then you just held it for the next 45 or so years, 44 years, right? Your $90 to today's date would have became $4,461. Now, I know half of us were not alive then. I get that. But this exercise is to explain something. Yes, inflation killed your dollar, which means that you had $1, it brought it all the way down based off of this. $1 became 21 cents over that span of 1978 to 2022. That kind of sucks. But if you just invested your money in order to try to beat inflation, would this have been the case for absolutely everybody? Probably not. But this is why the amount of time that you're in the market makes a big difference. So if you invested in that same time frame of 1/1/78 all the way to now, you could have made over $370 per share in the general stock market of the S&P 500. This is the secret to actually combating inflation, which is to invest your money. Because the good thing about the market, it's not about timing the market. Because we all know the market's going to crash eventually. Much like how we can breathe air and we need water to survive, the market's eventually going to crash. But this is why if you invest money every single year and you dollar cost average, in the end, you're going to be ahead. Because there's lots of estimates that say that the average year over year for the S&P 500 is 9%. Which, even by all the calculators that I've used in previous videos, I always calculate with a 7% interest year over year gain. Which means that I calculated for less than what they say is the average. But again, you can look at this. 1978, 1/1/1978, all the way to now, it goes from 90 to 44.61. Now, this is not investment advice. This is just common sense, guys. If you have a dollar that does not increase in value, you should put it into things that do increase in value. Now, you can also look into real estate. You can look into precious metals. You can look into cryptocurrencies. I'm in most of those, okay? I'm in a lot of cryptocurrencies because I believe that's the future. I have a few stock investments, and I'm looking to get into, in this case, eventually real estate. It's just that takes a whole lot more to do. But if you have money, invest your money. Don't put your money under a mattress. And if you're telling yourself, oh, but Armando, the market's going to crash. Well, at least start. Even if it's just $25 to $100 a week or a month, just start. There's lots of options that you can do. And you don't even have to buy full stocks. You can buy, let's say, fractional shares, which means that if you can't afford one share of McDonald's stock, you can buy $20 worth of McDonald's stock. And I have lots of links below that you can start doing that. It's called M1 Finance. I personally use M1 Finance, so I can buy fractional shares where I put money every single week. I have lots of other apps like Voyager and Coinbase where I buy cryptos every week because I'm always investing a little bit in order to make sure that I'm always protected against inflation and that I have investments that can help me actually achieve wealth. Because You can go and get a side hustle, and you can go ahead and try to ask for a raise, and you can do all these things to make more money. But it's not just about making more money. It's about preserving your money. And one of the best ways to preserve your money is to invest your money. Are you going to lose sometimes? Absolutely. Are you going to invest and the market's going to crash? Absolutely. If you stay in the market long enough, it will crash. But if you buy when those big dips occur, or if you invest over the long term, you will almost always win. Keyword, almost always win. I don't know how long you're going to live. I have no idea how long I have on this earth. But all I know is that as long as I continue going with this and I stick with my investment thesis, I will be just fine. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you like what I do around here, please check out the description on ways to support me and what I do. And until then, see you in the next video. Always stay in the action, guys. Thank you so much.